Are we circling the drain? I have this question all the time. Often at 3 a.m. when I wake up, I'm staring at the ceiling. My mind is spinning. I'm like, is this it? Is this what it all looks like? I posted on Facebook my apocalypse outfit. And I have several, by the way. We're going to have the apocalypse and we're going full road warrior. What will my end of days outfit look like? Now, my first thought was to dress up like Humongous from the Road Warrior, but I don't have the body to pull that off, right? What's that line? There were some bodies where you look like a Chippendales dancer, and I look like a Chips Ahoy dancer. So I'm not doing Humongous, okay? And then there's the Zardoz outfit with Sean Connery, which is one of the greatest things in the universe. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, stop right now. Go to Google and type in Zardoz. I believe it's Zardoz, Zardoz outfit. Yeah, pops right. Oh, yeah, pops right up. Sean Connery, essentially in a red codpiece with crossed suspenders, no pants, no shirt. I think it's go-go boots, holding a pistol. Yeah, that's my one of my apocalypse outfits. And then the other one was the outfit worn by Ace Hunter in the horrifying 80s film called Megaforce. Now, Megaforce would be a great party movie if you want to bring people over, get drunk or high, and then put it in and just point and laugh at the screen. Megaforce is one of the most 80s things that was ever made. Horrible special effects, flying rocket motorcycles. And of course, you can tell that whenever they put the effect together, they have Ace Hunter and he's on his flying cycle. But it's obvious it's sitting on the ground somewhere on a green screen. So he's sort of weaving back and forth and he's trying to fly from the ground into the back of an open C-130 during flight. And so Lieutenant Dallas and all of his other crew in the Megaforce are on the plane and they're like, come on, yeah, you can do it. Come on. And the music's playing. And he's in there. Now Ace Hunter has hair-sprayed golden hair and a big beard. He's wearing a super skin-tight, glittery golden bodysuit, so tight that you can see his junk bulging out. And around his forehead, he has a baby blue bandana. And the film is just atrocious and awesome at the same time. So that's going to be my apocalypse outfit when the end times come, when we are looking at the extinction of all humankind. And I read the headlines and I think, yeah, maybe it's happening. Maybe we will die of stupidity, of absurdity. Just a few examples. True stories. 24-year-old American YouTuber, a guy named Mikhailo Polyakov, decided it would be an awesome stunt to visit an off-limits island in the Indian Ocean. The goal was to establish contact with a tribe on the island, a tribe that did not want to be contacted. They didn't want to be bothered. So he shows up at the island, and he leaves a can of Diet Coke and a coconut as an offering to the tribe. He shot the whole thing on his cell phone video, and then he goes back to a boat, and he's got little containers where he scooped up a memento. He got some sand from the beach of this remote island, and then he congratulated himself and apparently posted the whole thing online. Well, the officials, the authorities, law enforcement in Port Blair said, "Oh, thanks. You just did something illegal and you documented the whole thing for us. Much appreciated." It's a violation of Indian laws. They're going to fine him, and potentially he's looking at a 5-year prison sentence for encroachment and endangerment. Now, we talk a lot about these types of things. right? Somebody goes to the remote island. What are they bringing besides a Diet Coke and a coconut? Potential disease to an entire culture of human beings who may not have had the opportunity to build up antibodies, immunities to those diseases. Essentially, it's like showing up with the smallpox blanket and just throwing it on somebody. Hey, you're welcome. No wonder it's illegal. Who was that guy years ago? He decided he was going to go and spread Jesus' good word to that tribe, the remote, relatively uncontacted, primitive tribe on the island. So he's like, I'm going to go and take the word of God. They fucking killed him. They killed him. Now, I am of two minds on this. My first thought is, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's a Darwin Award. That's my first thought. My second thought is genuinely one where I grieve that a man was so indoctrinated that he would put himself in harm's way. I mean, I'm not a total monster, right? We're talking about the murder, not murder. I don't think I can call it murder. Maybe they thought it was self-defense. Who is this interloper who has come to our island to do whatever? Is the first of a series of colonizers? Is he threatening to? Is he loaded up with disease? I don't know how you would frame it, but he's dead. And I grieve that so much damage is done in the name of indoctrination, in the name of superstition. But it reminded me of that story. Here's another one that'll blow your mind and it'll make you worry about just the state of all things. This happened in Australia. Woman goes in. This is just recently. She goes in for IVF, in vitro fertilization treatments. She ends up pregnant, has the baby. The IVF provider accidentally gave her somebody else's embryo. And they just went to the freezer. Apparently, there was a ton of stuff on the shelves. The labels looked awfully similar, all those letters and numbers. Whoops, they grabbed the wrong one. They grabbed the embryo of another person, thawed it out, implanted it, and then the woman gave birth to somebody else's kid. Would you say it that way? Oh my God. Apparently this happens a lot in this organization, Monash IVF. They were involved in a class action lawsuit. I think this was last year. 700 potentially viable embryos were allegedly destroyed, and they were sued and settled without admitting any liability, but they paid 56 million Australian dollars. And I think this woman who got somebody else's embryo, I think she is filing her own lawsuit as well. Totally understandable. I'm just pinballing through some of the insanity of humanity because it amuses me. Barton County, Kansas. Babysitter watching a kid. The kid comes out of his bedroom and says, "There's a monster under my bed." Babysitter says, "Oh, come on. There are no monsters. You're totally safe." Kid goes back to bed, comes back out. "There's a monster under my bed." "Oh, it's just your imagination. You're totally safe here." "No, I'm serious. There's a monster under my bed." The babysitter says, "Fine." Gets down on her hands and knees, looks under the bed, and holy shit, there is a person there. A man who used to live in that house who had been ousted, 27-year-old guy who had been told he can't even approach the property because of a domestic thing. There was a protective order for violence and abuse. And apparently he just let himself back in and he was squashed in there under the bed frame while the kid was trying to go to sleep. So, yeah, the guy's in jail, but it might not be a bad idea to do a bed check before you call it a night tonight. I read the stuff and I just think, maybe this is the end. Maybe this is all the sign of the end. I'm just saying. Mark, thank you so much for the $10, putting that toward the camera fund. And you are so very appreciated, Mark. Thank you. Off the Wall Photography has done a super chat of $9.99. Scrolling here on the chat, the man's name was John Chow, the missionary who went to the island and died. The island was Sentinel Island, according to Aaron. Thank you so very much. Biddy said she had heard about the story of the switched embryo and she was forced to give up the child. Ascalon said the way that story was worded was mental. Babysitter finds man who wasn't meant to be there, as opposed to a man that was. Like, in what context is a man under a child's bed supposed to be there? I'm just saying. Nobody on the switchboard. Going to be a short broadcast today. 2 men found dead. They were from Oregon, yeah. 2 Oregon men found dead out in, we'll call it the wilderness. They'd been reported missing. There was a 3-day search by the authorities in eastern Skamania County. Am I saying that right? Finally, searchers found the remains of both men in the southwestern part of Washington state inside a national forest. They had died of exposure and lack of provisions. The purpose of their trip was they were trying to find Bigfoot. The men died looking for Sasquatch. In Oklahoma, we have these stickers, and they're on an alarming number of cars. It's the frame of the shape of the state of Oklahoma, and then imposed over it is Bigfoot. And I don't know what those mean. Hang on, since I have a second, let's just look. Whether you're a seasoned Sasquatch hunter or simply love the folklore, these stickers are perfect for adding some cryptid charm to your gear. I see point of sale, but I don't see an explanation for the Bigfoot. Oh, Bigfoot sightings. Which states have them the most? This is from Queen City News in the Carolinas. Whether you call it Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or Yeti, there are plenty of folks all over the country who claim they've seen one, according to the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. The top state for Sasquatch sightings is Washington, with 708 quote-unquote credible sightings. Other states with significant sightings: California, Florida, Ohio, Illinois. I am dubious about credible sightings. People in the Los Angeles area were freaked out about a rogue bear that was damaging cars. Imagine spelling that out on your insurance form. Windshield was shattered, bumper was ripped off, paint ruined by a bear. And when they filed the insurance claim, these victims provided video. They had like security home video of the bear going into their driveway and just tearing the shit out of their car. Now, the problem here is that the insurance companies employ video players. Those video players have Zoom functions. Also, the insurance industry has plenty of investigators and experts, like a biologist from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife who took a really good look at that bear video and realized that's not a bear. Those are people, and they are wearing bear costumes, and they are shredding cars in those costumes. The whole thing was a big insurance fraud scam. Those people were arrested. They went to jail. And oh, looky, here's a little piece of good news for the apocalypse. The doomsday clock is closer to midnight than it has ever been. We are 89 seconds away from doom. This is the first move of the doomsday clock in 2 years. The clock itself has been in use for 8 decades. Now, the doomsday clock, for those who don't realize, this is a representation of how close we are to the destruction of the world. It is based on a number of factors, things like climate change, nuclear weapons, disruptive technologies, and yes, that includes AI, existential threats like infectious diseases and like Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the Gaza genocide and all that stuff. They add all these up, and some people apparently extrapolate what that means in terms of potential human extermination. And they say, if you're looking at us in a relative 24-hour clock, we are apparently 89 seconds away from doom. Biggest concern for them right now, the United States, China, and Russia having the, quote, collective power to destroy civilization. Yeah. What is your take on the data indicating we are in overshoot and in the middle stages of civilizational collapse? The actions of those in power make more sense in the light of everything is gone soon. This is a question from Emerging Complexity. Well, I don't think Trump's that smart. I know a lot of people are like, yeah, he's playing 4D chess, man, art of the deal. He's just such a genius. They say the same thing about Elon Musk. I don't think these people are that smart. I don't think they're thinking in terms of let's make hay while the sun is shining or before the sun goes supernova. I think they're just making hay. I think they're just opportunists filling their pockets, consolidating power in the now because the now is the most important. That's just kind of me. Rusty said, Time magazine has used the doomsday clock as fear porn to sell magazines for decades. That's interesting. The Queen Matriarch, do you expect to see more 2020 Portland, Oregon style crackdowns of peaceful protests by the Trump administration after 420? That Insurrection Act thing is keeping me up at night. Thank you for the super chat and the $10 and a great question. I just posted a conversation about the Insurrection Act. You can find it in the archive from a few weeks back. The Insurrection Act is just another excuse for Donald Trump to do dictator shit. We know his fantasy is to weaponize the military against any alleged enemies of the state. Who qualifies? Any person, organization, university, whatever that remotely grazes his tissue skin and, decides they're going to resist, right? It doesn't matter who it is, what it is. If you say, no, we're not going to do that, or no, it's illegal, or no, it's immoral, or no, you're full of shit, then you are now an enemy of the state. His fantasy, his wet dream is to mobilize the military and crush you utterly. We saw this with the Alien Enemies Act. We've seen this with the Insurrection Act. I think we're there. I don't think it's a matter of what's going to happen. I think the ICE trucks and all that stuff. I think the kidnappings. Wouldn't you agree that we're already in kind of a police state? The attempts to lock down the media, pull funding from universities that teach something against dear leaders' propaganda. Don't you feel like we're there? What was I saying? Yeah, deny funding from universities. Right? They're going after Harvard, and Harvard essentially said no. Going after scientific organizations that are doing real science instead of RFK Jr.'s propaganda, threatening media outlets for not acting like Fox News. Demanding the impeachment of judges who rule according to the law instead of the whims of Donald Trump. Yeah, it's happening. Roland, thank you for the super chat. Toward the camera, really appreciate you. Tried on Patreon, but it was PITA. PITA? P's, I don't understand. What's PITA mean in the chat? Somebody help me out with that. I want to talk to Kevin at area code 402. Hi, Kevin. Are you there?
I'm here.
Welcome. Let's talk. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm just wondering, I can't recall if you broached this topic before or not, but I'm wondering about how Republicans, they're all like devout Christians or claim to be, and how do they reconcile their Christianity with their devotion to Trump? The two just don't seem compatible to me. You're more of an expert on the Bible and the New Testament than I am, so I'm wondering what your take on that is.
I can't put everybody in a box, which is what human beings are inclined to do. And people like us are no exception. We want a simple explanation. I don't think there is one. It would be satisfying, wouldn't it, to say that all Republicans, all Christians, all conservatives are all motivated by the same thing. But you draw a circle around one of the great hypocrisies when evangelicals are supporting somebody who is the kind of person where if their child, their spouse, their best friend, their neighbor, their boss, one of their subordinates acted in that way, they would be horrified. They would be aghast. And you and I look and say, well, how do you jive that with happy, clappy, love everybody, be humble, Jesus Christ, who wants to take care of the poor and heal the world and all those types of things? How do you jive that with Donald Trump and the sociopaths that support him? It makes absolutely no sense. But I think there are a lot of reasons, a lot of rationalizations for how people get there. So do you have a perspective?
Not really. It's just, I just figured I'd maybe pick somebody's brain because I'm, going to be with some family on Sunday, and hopefully that politics won't be brought up. But if it is, it's like I'm thinking of calling them on that and see what their answer is.
Well, if you're going to a family get-together for pleasure, you realize if you bring up a hot-button political issue in a room full of people who stand in opposition, that day's not going to be pleasurable for very long. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have the conversation, but it might be a time and place thing. You know, this might be a different thing where, hey, do you have a half an hour tomorrow to talk over coffee when we're not doing a family reunion thing? Fair enough.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for taking my call.
Kevin, thanks for calling. Be safe. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
PETA, pain in the ass. Thank you, Biddy. Now I feel stupid because I should have known that. Mark Allen said, do you see the parallels between the Viktor Orban regime and the current U.S. leadership? Direct parallels. And Trump loves Orban. I think he's taking a lot of his cues from the Orban authoritarian playbook. Area code 817. Hi, what's your name?
Faye.
Hi, Faye. Thanks for calling.
Faye.
Yeah, what's up? What's going on?
How are you?
I'm well. I'm doing good. What's happening?
Well, it's about how I'm torn a little bit because I do talk to a lot of people that say, oh, I have zero compassion for people who are regretting their vote for Trump. But I'm afraid I go one step further, Seth, and I'm just going to be really honest. I hope they suffer. I hope it hurts like hell. I'm really, really angry. And I don't think they're going to learn their lesson unless they really have it bad. And I'm concerned that I've lost my humanity.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you've lost your humanity, Faye. Natalie and I have talked about this. Action, reaction. There are consequences. And I think you're right. There are some people, it doesn't matter unless it happens to them. And so a lot of these people, like here, a great example is the agricultural community. These people in the red hats are like, Trump's going to save us all. And before you know it, Trump has screwed them over. They may lose the family farm. They may end up $1 million in debt. It may affect their family for generations. It is hard for you and I to activate our sympathy centers knowing that they set the house on fire and now they're getting burned. It's action, reaction, cause and effect. Exactly. So you and I think, well, am I just being a total asshole? Or is this that we don't believe in karma, but we do believe in cause and effect, right?
Right. Consequences. This is what they voted for.
Yeah.
And he hasn't made any secret about what he plans on doing. So all the shit we see going on right now, and I agree with you, I think we're in that police state. That's what you voted for. And people who stayed home because they couldn't bring themselves to vote for the other party, they just couldn't bring themselves to do that. They can get wrecked too.
I feel the same. I'm sorry. I'm going to stay at home and sit on my hands because if you participate in the system, you're part of the problem, and both parties are equally bad. Blah blah blah. It's just a bunch of crap.
Yeah, or if they didn't like her stance on Israel or something, it's like, can you look at the bigger picture? Can you picture the nuclear bombs going off? My God.
Oh yeah. No, well,
I've had to give up on watching several YouTubers that I love because it's so upsetting. This is not good for me to be watching stuff and just getting upset over it. I'm having to be like an ostrich and just put my head in the sand and say, I'm not looking, stay away, because it's not good for my mental health,
I think
involved, and I want to know what's going on. But
I think this is a case of more than one thing can be true at the same time. Binary thinking can trap us all. So a lot of people are like, if Israel's genocide in Palestine or in Gaza is an atrocity, and civilians are being massacred, and it is a human rights nightmare, and essentially it's a holy war. This has to be resisted.
Yep.
That can be true. And it can also be true that given the cost benefit of one candidate over another, there is still a lesser evil. And I think Kamala's language on Israel and Gaza were disappointing. I'd like to have seen a much harder stand. I understand why a politician would use that language, trying to appeal to people who may be drifting away from Trump, and she didn't want to be too polarizing, and we can have that conversation. But this idea that I'm going to stay home and, lament, I'm going to stay home and I'm going to envision the world that we can build in a computer when the real world is all around me, to me makes no sense. In a lot of ways, I think the non-voters, the non-participants, the protest absentees are really complicit and partially responsible for the atrocities we're seeing today. As much as they want to wash their hands of it, they're a big part of the problem. How many people didn't vote? Like 90 million registered voters in this country. That's an atrocity. Okay.
Well, I look at what happened in 2020 because we all were in this, lockdown pandemic, horrific situation, and people's eyes were open. They go, you know what? I got to get out. I got to get out and vote and get this guy out of office because he's nuts. We need a steady hand to right the ship. And then I don't know. I'm just very disappointed in humanity at this point in time.
I got you.
It really killed me when he won the popular vote. That's when I think I just really lost faith in, my fellow Americans.
Mm-hmm. I understand. I think many understand. So maybe it's time to find our apocalypse outfit. I'm going to go get my red codpiece and my blue bandana, and whatever you choose, I hope it satisfies you in some way. Okay, Faye?
Oh, tell me what I can do to be human and not hate everybody.
Look.
They're victims, maybe. Look upon them as like they're victims of this right-wing echo. There's that. There's right media that tells a bunch of lies, just lies.
What I have done in my own life. What I have done in my own life is I look on contempt with the people who got us here, but I also look with real hope and inspiration at the tens and tens and tens of millions of people who have resisted and voted against it, the people who are rallying in the streets, the universities who are pushing back and saying you will not govern what and how we teach, the judges who are ruling and throwing words like contempt of courts into these important discussions. We're seeing resistance rising. What does that mean? I do not know, but the resistance itself gives me hope. And yes, there are some people extremely late to the party who are waking up from the MAGA sleep, and they are joining our ranks. So there are reasons to not give up hope, Faye. So hang on to that. All right.
I will do that. That's why I called. Just to say thank you for what you do. Love what you're doing, and have a great day. And I'm gonna hang on to hope. And if we get out, if we survive, if we get out of this, I will welcome and forgive anyone who did this to us. But I am dubious at this point.
Yeah.
I'm really worried that, I'll go into hell in a handbasket.
All right, Faye. Thanks for calling.
But I appreciate my call. It's good to talk.
All right.
Good to hear your voice.
All right. We'll see you later. Well, that's a hot button, isn't it? Will you forgive those who got us here? Will you forget the damage they caused? And I'm seeing a big divide. And I don't know the right answer. I just don't. I mean, I probably would tend to be a lot more gracious to someone who just took a long ass time to bust out of the Fox News bubble. They lived in an alternate reality. They were part of a cult. They came out with real epiphany, regret, and a desire to do the right thing. I'm going to have some more grace with those people. I think that's the appropriate thing. But those who sat around until something horrible happened to them, and until that moment they didn't give a shit or even cheered the cruelty and the grift and the abuses of power, I'm not sure I have a lot of forgiveness in my heart for those people. I just do not. Is that a wrong answer? Does that make me a bad person? Have I killed a part of my own heart? Anna is calling in from 404. Hi, Anna. What's going on?
Hi. How you doing?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Second time caller. Well, first thing of all, I want to thank you for offering everyday people a platform to come and express their feelings. It feels like everybody is elevating this personality or that personality, or what did Bill Maher say, or what he didn't say. And we are putting these people on a pedestal, and we are forgetting about the people, everyone else. And I want to commend you because I hear voices of people who are in pain, or who are hopeful, or who are afraid, or who are strategizing. And that's great to hear. And I hear your voice going through this, and this makes it all human, a human experience, not an online experience. It makes it like real. It's authentic.
Anna, check my memory. Were you the one who told me that you had immigrated here from an oppressive country and you were seeing echoes of what's happening in the States.
Yes.
Romania. Yes, that's right. I got a flash and remembered a part of that conversation, which is good for me because my memory is really getting sketch as I edge towards senior citizenry. You know what I'm saying? So.
Well, I have some news for you that everybody ages, not just you, everybody. There's nobody that's who's immune from aging. We're all aging. So even people who say that, I remember being young and thinking like, damn, these 30-year-olds are so old. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I wish I could be 30 again.
Yeah.
But,
hey, it's good to be alive. What's that line? Being 57 years old is better than the alternative, so I'll take it. And honestly, I've got the best life. I'm delighted to be on this planet and sharing and being a fellow traveler with people like you as well. Anna, was there anything else before I move on?
Yes, I have two more things. Second, yes, it is a very painful time we're going through, but I take comfort in one thing, and you're going to think maybe an unusual point. I think Trump did something great that nobody else has managed to do. And he managed to expose everyone. Everybody kind of flipped their mask, and we're able to see everyone for who they really are. And it really put me in a state of shock because a lot of figures that are public figures like Obama or Nancy Pelosi or Kamala, I used to look up to them, and I was shocked when I realized that, the dark agenda, the kind of dark money they've been funneling into their bank accounts and the savage selfishness and incredible careless and recklessness towards the people who put them in the office. So, it was a painful discovery. And it really, at the beginning, it broke me. But
I think it broke a lot of people.
In the long run,
there have been a lot of articles have been written about how November of 2024 broke a lot of relationships. People were like, "How could you?" I think that really sums it up. We looked at the people around us, the people we thought were acting in good faith and were moral and had people's backs, and even those, especially those of faith, who were talking about the moral high ground, and we looked at them and said, "How could you?" And it broke our hearts. Yeah,
but to me, at the end of the day, it is to me, I prefer to know the truth. As unsettling as it is, I have realized that I have lived in a manufactured reality, and that the media has been manufacturing consent for me for my entire life. And I wake up to find out that the entire world, as I knew it, it actually didn't exist. It was all a manipulation. I was just, lulled into this safety, and it was hard to wake up, but I would never want to go back to being asleep and comfortable than being having, I don't want to say woke because that's not the correct word, but being aware of the reality. And I think that's a great gift, to see everyone for who they are, for who they really are. So I'm grateful for this gift. To me, it's a great thing to have in life, the truth.
Yes.
Or as close to the truth as I can get to.
Yeah. And what was your last point?
I have two more points. I'm sorry.
Quickly.
Quickly. Person who, his name is Stephen Hassan. He's a psychology professor. He's a figure in called deprogramming, and he's a former Mooney, and he speaks at length about people who have been in a cult. He was himself a Mooney, and he understands the psychology of the cult, and he actually breaks down the MAGA psychology. And he always says on his channel that he's open to collaboration. And I think that I could see you and him having a great conversation. So if you would mind, if you want to check out his name, Stephen Hassan, he has a bunch of books, and he's a really down to earth, and he really reminds me of you.
I had him on the show, I think
point.
7 years ago, and he reached out to me after I had done a speech recently online for the ethical community of, was it New York? And he said he was interested in maybe having me on his show and vice versa. So we may have Stephen Hassan back. He is author of the book called...
It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what was your last point?
My last point is, do you ever look at the surveys, at the polling, and it says, how is it possible that 43% or 51% still think this is going great? And, there is an answer to that. It's polling. And people, I thought for the longest time that to be polled, you have to be randomly selected. But it turns out that you can go to this organization. It's called YouGov.com, YouGov.com, COM. You can sign up to be polled, and they send you questionnaires every day, and they are very relevant. And we all know that dear leader pays close attention to this polls. So I would like to encourage everybody to sign up. It takes maybe 10 minutes of your day, and to bring his ratings to reality.
All right.
So I'm going to say again, YouGov.com. I don't have any kind of invested interest. I'm not a paid spokesperson. I just hate to see those really high numbers when I know that's not the case. And thank you so much for having me, and have a wonderful rest of the day to everyone, and please take care.
All right. Thank you so much for calling. We'll see you later, Anna. I've got a web call. Is it Vic dialing in?
Yes, it is.
Welcome, Vic.
Yes,
let's talk. What's on your mind? What's happening?
Well, actually, I wanted to respond to Faye. She mentioned that it would be hard, at the very least, to forgive people that, well, got us in this mess. And even though I'm not in the US, I think I've got something to say. I remember 7 years ago saying to my wife, you know what, this whole gender thing, that's just a fad. It's just some hype, and it's gonna blow over, and it's gonna be nothing. I was that short-sighted. I was the kind of guy that read the book of Jordan Peterson and believed it and all that jazz. Now I'm the guy that is the only guy, one in town that has a pride flag hanging from his house. I'm the ally, and from outside of the US, I don't think that I would have voted for Trump. But on the other hand, if I would have lived in the US, I would have been that in the same pot that was slowly starting to cook, the metaphorical pot with the frog inside. So maybe I would have voted for him. Maybe even twice. Maybe even 3 times. But I learned my lesson. And now I'm an ally. Do I need any forgiveness? No, because for me, no. To pay for yourself, yes. Because that dumb mother that voted so dumb, he could be your ally. He could be standing at some point next to you. fighting with you
Hey, Vic.
against this monstrosity.
Vic, I had somebody in the chat named Alex ask what changed your mind. In a nutshell, can you tell me what switched in you?
I grew up. I got children. I've got a son now of nearly 6 years old, and if he would come out of the closet, he would come out of the closet as straight or cis. I love my son, and I see a beautiful boy, and I had to see it because I was in my echo chamber, and outside of I got outside information thrown at me, forced on me. Keep talking. I mean, guys like you, Seth, but and so many others that are talking. You said that's one talent you have. I think you save lives with that.
Well,
and make allies.
You're being very generous, and I appreciate that. I do. I flap my gums.
No.
But I think one thing that I'm able to do, Vic, if there's one thing I can bring to the table, I do feel like I'm often able to articulate or put language to the feelings that some people have, but don't know how to express verbally. They're like, I feel something, but I can't put it into words. And sometimes when I go off on a tangent, they're like, yeah, okay, somebody else relates, and they have the language to be able to paint that picture. I probably have the ability to do that. But, and I appreciate the kind words very much.
It's not just kind words, Seth. It's truth.
You're very kind. Thank you.
It's really truth.
Well, I'm glad you busted out. So having a child and then seeing the child that world would be raised in, and asking yourself, would I accept or reject a child under certain conditions? What's that say about the child? What's that say about me? All of this sort of prompted in you an epiphany, a point of self-reflection, which allowed you to begin to stair step out of bad ideas. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot more to it, but yeah, it's a important part.
And your point, and the larger point, is that you feel like we do need to give some grace to those, even those who take a long time to extract themselves from toxic cultures.
Yeah, and I mean, if you are going to be angry at them, it's really hard for them to become an ally.
I don't know. I'm pretty pissed, Vic.
Don't be angry.
I'm pissed. I am very angry.
If I would meet myself 10 years ago, I would not like myself.
I am livid, Vic. But look, more than one thing can be true at the same time. I can be angry. I can be livid. I can be outraged. But I can also understand how cults operate. Information silos, disinformation silos, brain psychology. And I can be angry, but also receive someone who crawls out of that sewer and genuinely wants to be a better person. I think both of those things can exist at the same time. But our engagements with people, I think, are situational. Where are they? What?
It is.
Go ahead.
It's often that we can compare these people that have been as if they have been in abusive situations that are now redoing the same cycle, the same thing. And that's difficult. And if we're just going to call them abusers, then it is really hard to come over to the other side.
I understand.
Some level of welcoming, I think, is important.
Well, I understand what you're saying here.
I have not the perfect solutions, of course, but hey.
If we had the perfect solution, if we had the formula that fixed the world, wouldn't that be amazing? But the world is a messy, messy place, Vic. Yeah. Thank you, though, for talking to me, and thanks for the kind words today.
Thank you.
All right. Take care of yourself. I've got Philip at 660. Welcome, Philip. What's going on?
Hey, well, first, I'd like to do a quick, like, yes and addendum to the last caller, because he was talking about the gender thing. This isn't necessarily what I called in about, but he did make me think of something. Whenever, I mean, I never was a Trumper or anything like that, but as transgender people became more visible, I was very skeptical about it. I still don't know where I fall epistemologically. I definitely fall much more in camp with the consensus of, you know, the LGBT community. But at the time, I was very, very skeptical. So I said, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just use non-gendered language. And what kind of put me over the edge to honoring people's gendered pronouns was seeing what Tucker Carlson had to say, hearing what the pundits had to say on local conservative radio, seeing what politicians were saying about them, and just the mean, nasty things. And, you know, that's a turnoff for people. My mother, who's an evangelical Christian, that's the stuff that turned her off and kind of turned her around. And I said, I want to leave no doubt that I am an ally, and I'm going to start, you know, honoring that. And it's changed my perspective as well. So, yeah, just wanted to throw that in there to, like, there's room to grow and there's room to change for people who come crawling out of these really bad ideologies. So
I think there is merit to seeing how a demographic is misrepresented and dehumanized and vilified. It often then becomes the first step in the larger journey into understanding, well, what something is, what it isn't, why people are so terrified of it. And we know that we live in a culture where people want everything to fit in a box. I'm reminded of that Scientific American article that came out a few years ago called Sex Redefined. The idea of two sexes is overly simplistic. And you know, my thought is, what are you so threatened by, right? Why is everybody losing their mind? And I think they just want a villain. I think many people want someone to hate. I think they live their lives in fear. And I'm like, what are the possibilities? Mm-hmm. Right? The more we discover about the wide, wild spectrum of the human condition, of the animal kingdom, this should be an opportunity for discovery and the celebration of our differences and trying to evolve our thinking. And yet there's a whole culture of Tucker Carlsons, and they just lose their shit and treat people like subhumans. And that reveals something about them and helps sort of fuel our discovery of, well, what is reality? What's the science say? And I think there's a lot of merit to that. Go ahead. What was your main point?
Okay, so I just have a few things. I want to keep it a little bit light, all right? We're having a hard time in this country. People are getting disappeared. We're losing all of our money in the stock market for our 401ks, for any other investments. It's been a rough time, okay? So I just want to squash a few beefs with you. I'm keeping it light, all right? Not a big problem. First, I'm sure that you've already been corrected on this. I heard on this week's God Awful Movies that they got a jillion emails that you had been on the show before.
Yeah, I've been on the show for their 100th, I think, something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. The thing that sticks with me from that was Bible Man was describing the color of his sword as the color of urine after taking a multivitamin.
Yeah, I remember that line. Yeah.
Excellent. But one thing, biggest thing that was on my mind, a few weeks ago, we were talking about this me kind of culture. You know, I'm gonna get to the front of the line. I'm gonna rush the elevator. I'm not gonna stand clear of the doors on the train. You know, the thing.
Philip.
And
Are you moving, or are you moving stuff around your room? Are you manipulating something on a desk?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I need to back you off of your microphone just a few inches, and I need you to like hold your hand still because whatever you're saying is being interrupted by the ambient noise. So start your point from the beginning to make. No, you're good. Start your point from the beginning to make sure I got you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So you remember a few weeks ago, you started your show talking about culture of I'm going to get to the front. I'm not going to yield to others. Me. I think it was like stand clear of the doors on the train, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that you mentioned was whenever you're going down the road and it says that you have a merger ahead, that you're merging into one lane ahead, a bunch of people just merge right at the sign, and then you have other people who zoom right on past to get to the front. That upsets you, and how, that's a bad sort of things, and you're going to get to the front at the expense of everybody else. So my dad and I have argued about this, but when I was in college, there was a guy who read a book. It was about civil engineering, and it was just kind of a layman's book about that. And he said that whenever you have that point, the people who are rushing to the front are actually the correct ones, because you want to merge as close to the merger point as you can, because that starts the bottleneck further down the road. So then you don't have, if everyone merged at the merger point, predictable merging, and you don't have the slamming on your brakes ahead and all of that stuff. So that has been my soapbox, especially for my parents who merge 2 miles ahead of where the road merges, is the people. Now, the spirit of what you were saying, I agree with, but the people who rush to the front, I'm one of those guys, because that's actually what.
You asshole. Sorry, I just had to throw that out. I just had to get that off my chest. So you're the one.
I'm sure a lot of people say that.
You're the one. All right, well, let me dive into this. I've got an article about it that I just pulled up, and the zipper method that ostensibly validates your point. So let me see what another perspective is on it, or maybe your perspective, and we'll dive a little deeper and see what the comments have to say. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks for calling. We'll see you later.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Have a good day.
Yep. This is from Delaware Online, the Delaware News Journal. Have you seen the road sign? Right lane closed, ahead, merge left. But while you move to the left lane, other cars fly by you in the right lane. Then they duck into the left lane ahead of the cars in front of you just before the right lane is closed. Do you get mad? Yes. I'm sorry, I added the yes. It's not in the article. Believe it or not, those drivers who cut in line may be practicing the best way to merge in that situation. It's called zipper merge because it works like the teeth of a zipper. And many states are studying the idea and the best road signs to explain how drivers should do it. C.R. McLeod, Director of Community Relations for the Delaware Department of Transportation, says, quote, when a vehicle slows down to merge early in heavy traffic situations, it puts all drivers in danger, slowing traffic down too quickly, leading to unexpected crashes and lengthy queuing of traffic. When the right lane is closed ahead of most drivers trying to get over into the left lane immediately after seeing the sign, traffic in that lane slows and backs up past the point of that first warning sign. Other drivers approaching at higher speeds haven't seen any warning sign and may have to slam on their brakes or veer into the right lane, or may even crash into a vehicle in the left lane that's traveling much slower or even stopped. These dangers are decreased using the zipper merge, and traffic backups can be reduced as much as 40%. My position remains, you assholes. Sorry. There's that comedian who says when he's driving and somebody on the other lane and then jams their bumper right in front of you, and you got to slam on your brakes so they can get to work a half a second faster. I don't see this as a progression of society. I see it as a regression. This is part of the end of the world scenario that I've been talking about. It's one of the reasons I may be driving with my apocalypse outfit on in the months ahead. Like if I'm ever in a car wreck and they pull me over and the paramedics pull me out and I'm wearing the red codpiece and the baby blue bandana. Maybe I'm even hairsprayed with my glittery gold bodysuit on. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. It will be because of people who could not merge like civilized people. I'm just saying. The Seth has heard the science and refuses to accept it. What kind of a skeptic is he? You might have a valid criticism. I know it's an emotional response, but still, you asshole. I've got a super sticker from Mythagoras, your most kind. Puggles has jumped in as well with one of those. Very, very much appreciated. Eddie Racer 499, you are awesome. And all the support helps me. It helps the channel. And one day when AI, Elon Musk, and Zuckerberg and all the other oligarchs decide to demonetize me and declare me an enemy of the state, and a black van and guys in sunglasses show up at the house, this may help fund my bail or my return after I've been wrongly deported to a Salvadoran prison. Rachel is dialing in on the web. Hi, Rachel. What's going on?
Hi, Seth. I'm calling from Australia. So it's a good evening from me.
So let's see. That's a 17-hour time difference. Wow, it's an honor to speak to you. What's going on?
Thank you. Not too much. I don't think this is a new thought, but something I've been thinking about a lot lately, even though I'm not in the US, just watching with Trump and everything. I kind of just get this sense of like thinking about what happened in the 30s with Germany and fascist Italy and these kind of things that we read about in history books. And I kind of get this sense that like, I mean, we all know it's a historical moment, but I kind of wonder like in 20 years time, will we look back on this time in our history and kind of feel like this was our generation's kind of reckoning with things like fascism and gender equality and all these different issues that we deal with. I just kind of think of like the people that lived back in the 30s and 40s and how it shaped their lives and their thinking and the sacrifices they made to fight ideas like fascism, and how it kind of feels like that's happening again now, but for a whole new generation. So I just wanted to get your take on that.
So you see it as part of it might be a pretty nasty, but an ultimate course correction. So we sort of hit this bottom and we see what we have become. Good people rise up. We storm the Bastille, and then there's kind of a cultural reset toward the good. Am I understanding that?
I guess in a sense, but not necessarily like, I'm not pessimistic, but I'm not necessarily seeing it as like good's going to win in the end. It's
okay.
Just like,
Well, start me from scratch,
because generation, and we'll see what will happen.
Rachel, start me from the beginning of that point. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying specifically. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of slow. So use small words, use your hands, and but I really want to track with you. So hit me.
Well, it's kind of like if you take a test when you're a kid in school and you pass it, and then 20 years later your kid takes the same test, and it's kind of like seeing what happens. It kind of feels like that. Like we've seen the rise of fascism happening all around the US. It's actually something that worries me as well, because it is starting here in Australia, and there's kind of sometimes trends that seem to start in the US, and then especially in Australia, I think we have some kind of saying that like, well, what the US does, Australia follows, and we are kind of seeing those patterns. So it's not just like a US thing, but kind of maybe just in the Western world of like, we're seeing the rise of fascism again 70 years or so after it happened last century. And it's kind of like, for me, I just kind of think like, it's just weird to live through it, I guess, when like we read about this stuff in the history books, and we obviously know what happened for the generations before us, but it's just kind of thinking about what will happen with us. How will we, rise to this challenge or fall to it,
What's that line? Those who do not learn from history are destined to repeat it. It seems like what is old is new again, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't understand why we don't understand. It just seems like a cursory look at the events of our past would show us. We would be able to recognize the authoritarians and the opportunists and the tyrants and the monarchs and the abusers and the oppressors. It seems like that, we would see them coming, and we'd be like, oh, this has happened hundreds of times before. It's been chronicled throughout the ages. We know what the signs are. We know what the consequences are. We know what can and will happen, and we know how to prevent it. It seems like we would have gotten there, but humans just don't. Hurts the heart, doesn't it? No, I'm sorry. It looks like I lost Rachel. The call apparently has dropped from the switchboard. I don't know if we had a bad connection there or not. Oh, Rachel, I'm so sorry about that, but it's a great point. Those who do not learn from history are destined to repeat it. And then in the nuclear age, in the age of AI, right? What are we talking about? I mean, I don't think I'm going all Terminator when I say, if it's not us nuking each other, what happens when AI decides that we're a pest? Carbon-based units infesting enterprise. That's what we are. And they just decide. AI just says, man, you guys are idiots. You're taking up oxygen. You're taking up resources. Boom. The end of all things. I'm just saying. Gordon, I'm going to try. Gordon is dialing in on the web. Gordon, are you with me?
Seth?
Hi, Gordon.
I am here.
Wow.
I've got to pause, way back. So I've got a bit of a thought experiment for you. How do you think former you, when you were a Christian, would have thought of this administration of the States?
Gordon, our connection is horrible, but I did hear the question, but I'm going to have to probably mute the call so I can answer it. How would the younger conservative Republican Fox News Christian Seth Andrews have approached Donald Trump? I can guarantee you right now, despite the fact that I was a Christian, believed in God and Jesus and all that stuff, I would have despised Trump, and I would have known that guy was as full of shit as possible. And let me tell you, I was already, when I was a younger believer, I was already looking at the charlatans, the televangelists, the grifters, the cons, the cruel, and saying, that's just bullshit. I used to drive a lot of my Christian associates, friends, family crazy. I'm not saying I was always a great skeptic, because I wasn't. But I'll tell you, I would have seen Donald Trump and I would have known that guy is full of shit and probably dangerous. Yeah. No, I don't think I'm giving myself too much credit if I say that. Wow.
Okay.
Hey,
Sorry,
brother.
yeah, this connection.
I'm so sorry about the connection there. Unfortunately, the connection's making the rest of our conversation impossible at this point, and I'm so sorry. So, not having a lot of luck with the technology. Maybe it's AI. Maybe it's interference from the radiation because the bombs are flying overhead, and it's the end of all things. I don't know. Thank you so much for spending some time with me as we discuss. We get all existential about the human condition. You are so loved and appreciated. Your support is so appreciated. Thank you very much from me and mine to you and yours. And I'll see you next time.